Today's inspiring conversation is with the founder and CEO of a natural skincare company that has been featured on QVC, Sephora, and Goop. Listen in to find out how it launched from her backyard. Have you ever felt deep within that there's something more you're supposed to be doing, but you're not sure what? Have you ever felt like you're producing a lot, but not expressing at all? Welcome to She Made It. I'm your host, Elle Zimmerman, and I am on a mission to help you cultivate meaning through the path of creativity. Join me to eavesdrop on conversations with brave women who broke through their resistances into a life of authenticity. Because I believe if she made it, you can too. I am so excited about this conversation that we're going to listen in on. And as some of my listeners know, and Clara, you know, I am a skincare potion junkie.
Yes.
I love cosmetics. I love skincare. And we started this conversation with our guest a couple months ago. And in the process, we were offered, and I'll let you tell about what we received.
Yeah, she said she would send us some free samples. So I was thinking like the teeny tiny little bags that you get like one use out of. So we get this big package and open it, and it's this amazing gift bag with products from their whole line from this company Alpyn Beauty, which you'll hear more about on this episode, for both of us. So it was so generous. It was like an early Valentine's gift. And I'm so excited for our guests to hear the story behind it because it's really fascinating.
It was a super interesting and inspiring conversation, and Kendra shares kind of a peek behind the journey from moving her family across country to her journey into motherhood and how her business has evolved and kind of the stumbling blocks along the way and where she is today, which is pretty incredible. Welcome to this episode of She Made It. And today I have a super special, super interesting, super creative guest, Kendra Kolb Butler. She is the CEO of Alpyn Beauty. So welcome, Kendra.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction. Hope I can live up to it.
Oh, Kendra, you have such a really interesting journey, and I can't wait to share with our listeners. People are often, we see how a woman has arrived with these great credentials and having, a beauty line developed and in Sephora, but they don't always understand the journey and the process. You didn't just arrive there one day. You had to really do some soul searching, deal with some resistances, make big choices, take risks to be where you are today. And that's the part of the journey that I just love to share and that I think our listeners are so interested in learning from women like you. But the first question that I'd like to start with, and before we get sort of into that path that you took, is what is your first creative memory?
My first creative memory. That's a really, really good question. I have to say from a very young age, my parents, particularly my mother, was very into arts and crafts. And we spent a lot of time paper mache. I don't know if you remember that. Paint, sidewalk painting, all over our house paint. I mean, we were always doing things with color and with our hands. And she really encouraged that creative and expressive freedom. So one particular memory, it's hard to pinpoint. It was just such a part of my childhood, and it was so woven into the fabric of my youth, just constantly playing with colors and using my hands, and that mind-body connection, in artistry it's been a part of my life forever. And as I got older, it translated into makeup, because when I was 12 and 13 and 14, I wasn't interested in painting on paper as much. I wanted to start painting on my face. So I would go to the local drugstores and I would get, whatever my weekly chore money allowed, I would go and I would just buy all kinds of colors. And I have some pictures in my teens where I did a lot of exploration on myself. And as I got even older than that, that translated into skincare and just loving the science and ingredients behind it all.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town called Wilmington, Delaware, which is a suburb outside of Philadelphia.
Hmm. Yeah. And so then I know you spent like 20 years living in Manhattan. How did you end up from Delaware to the big city?
I had always dreamed of living in a city. Coming from a small town, I was just so inspired by the culture and the number of people and the art and just all those different personality types. Living in a small area was always just so interesting to me. And I wanted to get to the city for years and years and years. And I finally arrived there when I was 21 years old. And it was just the best 15 years that I've ever spent living in Manhattan, and I don't regret it for a second.
And did you go there for college? Well, you probably were already maybe you went there for work then, correct?
I went there for work. Yes, I did foreign exchange program, and I lived in London and South Africa. And as soon as I left South Africa, New York was number one on my list. And I landed there at 21, and I found my dream job, and I just started working.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so, I know you were in the cosmetic industry, I guess, is that what you call it? Cosmetic
Yes.
industry. So give me a little bit of like the path of you land in New York City and now you become this, you, as you call it, it's a dream job. It's the dream city, but then it kind of evolves into the hamster on a wheel life. Can you kind of give me a little bit of that journey, how that, where you started and kind of what the impetus to move to something different happened?
Yes. So I moved to New York when I was 21, and I landed a job in public relations in the cosmetic industry. And our job was to represent different brands. So I worked at an agency, but I had the privilege of working with some of the best beauty brands in the business and working with their internal marketing teams and their sales staff and everything. I just learned a lot about the inner workings of a beauty company, and that had been my passion. It didn't even feel like I was going to work. Like I would wake up every morning and I would get dressed for work, and I would be so excited about sitting down at my desk and typing emails because I loved what I did and I loved the beauty industry, and I had a great experience. I mean, I think that everybody should live in a big city at some point in their life because you just learn how to, mesh into a culture and a very big population, and you learn how to find your strengths and weaknesses pretty fast. And I really, I appreciated that experience. I learned a lot. I had a lot of trials and tribulations, and I went through, a lot of challenges. I made a lot of mistakes. After about 20 years of doing that, I just started to get a little antsy, thinking about my life and how I was inside all the time and I didn't have that much exposure to Mother Nature. And the city that once intrigued me started to feel a little claustrophobic. I started to think about the toxins and the anxiety and, you're living amongst all these type A personalities, which was so great, but it was just a very fast paced lifestyle. And I was becoming very fast paced and I didn't like that. If I was waiting for my cup of coffee and it took 3 minutes instead of 2, I would get irritated. I thought, this is not good. This is not right. And I just had this internal voice telling me that you need a change. Like you need a little break from this. And we only live once. That life is not a dress rehearsal is something that I always have in my head. And you have to experience everything that you want to experience. And I thought I had just kind of checked the box on Manhattan. And my husband and who is my best friend and my biggest support, he was in the same place. So we decided to make a move.
Yeah, that is, first of all, lucky that you were both in the same place because that, city life to mountain living is quite an extreme change. So what a gift that was that you guys were aligned. First, the other question I have is, so you started as in the PR aspect of the cosmetic industry. Did you stay in that?
I was in PR for a long time. I did PR for about 10 years. And then after that, I went in house to work for a clinical skincare brand that was led by a dermatologist who was brilliant. And I started at his company when there were under 10 employees. And when I left, there were about 50. So for 10 years, over 10 years, I actually was internal,
And what would
at a cosmetic.
and what was your role with them?
I started as the director of communications, so I was handling public relations. And when I left, I was the senior vice president of marketing and sales. So I oversaw many different departments within the company and just really got exposure to what it takes to grow a business. And like I said, there was a lot of mistakes that were made, and I think every mistake makes you stronger. So it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah. So what's fascinating to me is that you're in sort of like, the marketing, PR, brand building aspect of cosmetics. And then you have this tug, you take this leap, and in that leap, you don't go you're of course you're always marketing and the public relations for your own company when you start your own company, but then you went into creating your own brand and pulling from who you are as a person and what matters to you. So I'd love to hear, like, how did the idea of the creation of the brand come from?
That's a really good question. So I can start by saying that none of this was planned. When I left Manhattan and moved to Jackson Hole, I didn't say, okay, I'm going to move and I'm going to start my own company. That was the furthest thought from my mind. In fact, I actually wanted to get out of it, to be honest. I felt like I needed a break. But I go back to something that somebody once told me. It's, if you can solve your own problem, there's a high likelihood that your problem is somebody else's problem as well. And when I moved to Jackson Hole, I opened 2 beauty stores, just to dip my toe in the industry, keep a hold on, what was going on. And I realized that living in high elevation and altitude was taking such an immense toll on my skin. And the clients that were coming into my beauty stores had the same complaints. Like nothing was really working for them. And my own skin was falling apart. I had all of my products that were doing really great things for me in Manhattan and using them in Jackson Hole. I was seeing flaking on my skin. I was constantly dry. I was seeing accelerated aging patterns. And I thought, this is a problem. And that problem is what led to the creation of Alpyn Beauty. Because I thought, if I'm having this problem, other people who live in high altitudes must have this problem.
So
And
let
taking
me
it one step further, if I can,
Yeah, keep going.
works in altitude, imagine what it's going to do everywhere else.
Hmm. Yeah, so I want to step back for just a second because you kind of just nonchalantly laid out, and I opened 2 beauty stores. So I'm just curious about that. So just to kind of like start from that very, very beginning. I know from reading a little bit about you that it wasn't even necessarily a complete move. It was like, hey, let's just escape the city. Let's take a break. Let's go for, several months and just kind of reground ourselves, and then let's see what's next. And then that turned into a permanent relocation, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And then what because, just opening up beauty stores, that in itself is a daunting task for some, I think. So how did that even start?
So when we initially moved to Jackson Hole, I thought I'm going to move to the mountains and I'm going to do yoga and make babies and ski. And it's going to be and I'm going to stay home with my children and we're going to play all day long. And for any mothers out there, we all love our children so much. But for me, that just wasn't the right fit for my personality. So, after a couple of months of doing that, I just started to get this itch. I felt like I wanted to do something else, and that would help me be a better mother to my children if I explored my own interests as well. So I tried to find a beauty store in Jackson Hole just thinking I could work in one, and there was no beauty store. I mean, I was shocked coming from Manhattan where there's a beauty apothecary on every corner that there was no place to shop for cosmetics in Jackson. Everybody was just ordering online. And for me, beauty is such a discovery and an experience. I mean, you want to try on a different color lipstick. You want to put the cream on your face and see if you like the smell before you buy it. So I thought this could be an idea. I knew a lot of people in the industry. I knew a lot of the other marketing heads for cosmetic and makeup brands. And I thought, I'm just going to reach out to my friends and see if they want to sell me their line, and I'll just make my own assortment if there's no place for me to buy it here. And I was onto something because we opened the store in June of 2016, and then we opened a second location a month later because it was so popular.
Wow. Well, you are like the living example of you see a problem and you find the solution. And I just want to also reflect on that, like that motherhood sort of paradigm that like we think either because we feel this like we should do it a certain way or we idealize what it's like. And I just want to just say thank you for being, honest about the reality of what that was for you. I always say I love my children, but I hate parenting, because parenting's hard.
It's really hard. And I looked at my friends. I was the last to have children, and I had so many friends who just did it so naturally. And they were just like these amazing mothers, and they just enjoyed every minute of it. And I do as well. But I think that for me, coming off of my background, I just was always kind of interested in being a great mother and being there for my children, but pursuing my own interests, because there's only so many play groups and music lessons and painting classes you can go to. And I was starting to feel like I needed to stretch a different muscle in my brain. And that's just me, because it's not for everyone, but that was my experience with it. And I found that I was much better with my children, when I had that opportunity to have my own release on the side.
Right. And you said explore your own interests, develop yourself so that you're a better mom. There's a book that I love, Brenda Euland. It's If You Want to Write. And she is this incredibly deep thinking woman who in the early 1900s wrote a book about the importance of we as women, we as mothers, expressing our creativity, cultivating our creativity. And I don't know the quote exactly, but she talks about, closing the door into a room of our own time to create. And as our kids knock on the door, telling them to go away because mother is creating, mother is expressing herself. And that rather than it being a shutting out of our children, it's an example to them that is an important part of their life, to express, to create, to have time to cultivate their own desires and passions. And so I think sometimes I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I feel the pressure of society to be such a present mother. And thank you for the reminder that sometimes we're better mothers, we're better examples when we are living our own self in authentic ways. And like you said, maybe it's not right for everybody, but for you, you knew that itch was something to be answered. And And you were onto something, and then that evolved. How did the stores evolve into now your own product line? You talked about the altitude, but then how did it become real?
So the stores, I was spent a lot of time in the stores. I was working a lot because I wanted to understand who my client was so I could merchandise the stores with the right products, and just spent a lot of time talking to women all day long. And, the problem that kept coming up was their skin, it's so dry, it's so dry. And I actually was getting a lot of returns on moisturizers that I was selling, and as a businesswoman, it was upsetting to me. I mean, I was over a 30% return rate at one point, on my skincare. And I thought, this is high. And I just happened to be sitting in my backyard one day. It was a summer afternoon, and I was looking out at the Grand Teton National Forest, which our backyard backs up to. And I'm looking at the flowers and the plants. And I don't know if you've ever been to Jackson Hole, but it looks like something out of a painting. In the summer, especially, it doesn't even look real. It looks fake. So I was just sitting there pondering this problem about my stores, and am I going to go out of business? And I'm looking at the plant life, the wildflowers and the plants that are growing, and they're just flourishing. I mean, they're not only surviving, but they are plump and juicy and hydrated and abundantly beautiful. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is growing here, and how have these plants, how has Mother Nature evolved in this climate, that's wreaking such havoc on our skin? How is she flourishing? Like, what is this self-adapting juice? Like, what is in these stems and leaves and flowers? And how can I utilize that and take a cue from her and see if she can provide an answer? So it kind of just hit me all at once. So I started to do some research and look into the plant life and the plants that were indigenous to the land. And I met with some local botanists and farmers and scientists. And I found out that sitting all around me in my backyard, as I'm sitting pondering this problem, there are skincare ingredients growing all around me. I'm literally sitting on a patch of skincare ingredients. Ingredients like borage and chamomile and arnica and calendula. I mean, they're all staring me in the face as I'm saying, how am I going to solve this problem with my skin and with my client's skin? So it kind of it was so blatantly obvious at the time. People are always like, how did you come up with this idea? And I just say I'd have to have been blindfolded, and completely non-observant, and not like I was sitting in a patch of flowers that were the solution to my problem. So it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I love that. And so my first question goes, okay, so then how does it become a product?
So I was really excited about this because I have all these wildflowers, and they're on my property, and I'm thinking they're so beautiful, but I'm very into the environment. I'm very into sustainability. And I learned about this art called wildcrafting, and it's been around for centuries and centuries. I'm sure the Native American Indians used it. People have been doing it for a very long time. But what wildcrafting is it's the art of sustainably, and I'm going to stress that word sustainable, harvesting a plant from its natural or wild growth environment, wild habitat. And when you wildcraft and you do it the right way and respectfully, you only take a tiny piece of a leaf or a stem or a branch. It's similar to taking a strawberry from a bush. I mean, you're not pulling the plant out of the ground. We're not clearing any forests. Like, you only need, these plants are very potent and they're very concentrated. So a little bit goes a long way. And what was so interesting to me is that something that grows in the wild has a different anatomy than something that is planted. Because when we plant a flower or an ingredient, a farmer waters it and nourishes it and protects it from the animals. And when it's growing in the wild, it's all on its own. I mean, there's a secondary metabolite system that kicks into place because this plant is trying to survive. And I thought, how can I take that survival mechanism, from these plants and translate it to skin to help our skin survive? And we started wildcrafting. I was able to get some samples of my first product, which was the Melt Moisturizer, using some of these wild plants. And I started to give them out in my stores.
But I mean, did you like take it from the plant in your backyard and start, mixing it in your kitchen, or
I wish I was that talented. So I found a manufacturer. I found a organic and clean lab that would take my own manufactured ingredients. And I started calling around to a lot of different places, and everybody was hanging up on me because I said, I have an idea for a product, but I have my own ingredients. So I want to send you my ingredients. And everybody was telling me, we don't do that. We don't do that. Because the way it works in cosmetic manufacturing is the manufacturer sources their own ingredients from a supplier, and they come in powder form or whatever, and they mix it into a product. And I was different. I said, I have ingredients that I'm going to send you, but I wanted it all done in a clinical lab setting. I didn't want to mix this stuff on my stove. I can't, I don't want bacteria growing in these products. It had to be top of the line, top notch. So I finally found a contract manufacturer that was willing to take a chance on me. And they said, we'll take your ingredients. We don't do it like this, but we'll try. And my husband drove the ingredients across the country in these big glass vats. He rented a pickup truck and drove them all the way to the lab. My second child was 5 days old, and he insisted on driving them. And I think he just wanted to get out of the house because he had a 2-year-old and a baby. And because I was like, why can't we ship them? No, they have to be driven, because if they broke, we were in trouble. Our harvest season is short. So he drove them to the lab, and then the lab provided me with some sample pots. But at this point, I didn't even have a line. I was not manufacturing. This was just a test.
And was were the store, again, because, when I talk with women they have these ideas for moving into a new direction, they have an idea, but they just don't know what step to take, or they limit themselves with all the potential roadblocks, and money is one of the roadblocks. So were your stores able to support this, or how did you move past that? This is a crazy idea. Nobody's doing it this way. I'm going to drive these live, healthy plants across country. There have to have been some resistances or fears, or what was going on through your head, and how was this happening? It's just so fascinating to me.
You have to start somewhere. This is the biggest thing. And I speak to entrepreneurs all the time, and I have a lot of friends who call me and say, I have this idea. And I just say, just start doing it. Just start doing it. Because if you sit and you think about all the challenges and the roadblocks, you're going to talk yourself out of it. It's similar to me. I'm a runner. And when I exercise, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't feel like running today. But I put on my shoes and I just start running. And after 3 minutes, my body's in the groove. So getting over that initial hump is the hardest part. And for me, I was in the stores. I had a lot of time. I just started making phone calls. And the financial outlay was not big at the time, because we didn't even make the brand. I just negotiated a fee, with this lab to try this out with these samples. And I wildcrafted the plants myself with my own hands. So there wasn't a big overhead, it was just an idea, and it was an investment of time more than anything.
Yeah,
I just
sweat
had to
equity.
find time. Yeah. And time is money. Time is our biggest asset. And that's something that I've struggled with over the years is, you say yes to everything, but sometimes you just have to carve it out and say, no, this is my time, and I'm going to work on this right now. And starting is the hardest part of all of this, I think, is just starting it.
And taking the step. And then again, just to reflect back to our listeners, and you have a 2-year-old and a 5-day-old. And so often women will say, oh, I don't have time. My children, blah, blah. And I'm not saying, that there's, again, I don't want to judge a choice, but it is also, you had an incredibly supportive husband. And then you have this take the next step attitude. So you get your samples back, and then what happened next?
So I called my top 100 clients and I said, I have something for you. Like, just next time you're by the store, like, do me a favor and pick something up. It's a moisturizer. I want you to put it on your skin and I want you to tell me what you think of it. So everybody's excited. Everybody wants something for free. So we got rid of those 100 samples pretty fast. I would say a few days. And then I was just in this waiting game because I didn't want to bother people and I didn't want to text them and I didn't want to be annoying. And a few days later, people just started coming to me. Like, I was stopped on my yoga mat. I would be shopping in the banana section of the grocery store and someone would come up and tap me on the shoulder. And everyone was just kind of saying, like, what did you give me? Like, what was in that jar? You nailed it. And the funny thing to me is it was just the plants that are growing all around us. It's the same plants that people were stepping over when they were hiking or riding their mountain bikes over. And we had kind of been ignoring them. And they were right there in front of us presenting this amazing solution. And for me, I was in skincare for 20 years and I've tried every skincare product on the market, probably twice. And I knew that this formula was different and it was special. But when you create something, it sometimes lack the objectivity. Like, you don't know if you're just being partial to it because it's yours. Like, everyone thinks their child is adorable and a genius. But like, what do the rest of the people think? So I was still skeptical. I was getting a great response from the locals. But I thought I'm gonna send this product out to some beauty industry vets, like some veterans who have been doing this for a very long time. And I met Annie Jackson of Credo, and I also sent a pot to Jean Godfrey Jude, who is at Goop. And I just wrote them a handwritten note and said, what do you think? And that kind of took the company to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just a reminder that don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to be generous and, give, but also don't be afraid to ask with either the response and feedback or from your years of relationship building within your industry. So then you have a product that you're getting some feedback on, and Kendra so generously shared some products with Clara and I, and our first response was how beautiful the branding, the packaging, the, glass bottles, like that's not, that puts it at there's like this elegance and this, I don't know, just really luxurious experience that comes just from the packaging and the box. So tell me how all that evolved then, from your samples sent out, support from the industry, and then how did the brand birth?
Well, I knew I wanted it to be an experience. I didn't just want this to be a cream that somebody puts on their skin that they look younger. I wanted to, with the packaging and the brand, I wanted to transport the woman or the man or whoever's using it into Jackson Hole. Like, this is kind of like when you open the box, I wanted this experience of come walk through these wildflower fields with me. Like, let's discover together. Let's see what's out there, what's growing. So I wanted it to have that kind of emotional feeling. And I had a very clear idea of what I wanted this packaging to look like in my head. So I started interviewing a few designers. I have friends who introduced me to some people, and I interviewed about 4 or 5 designers. I had phone calls asking them what their rate would be to design this look and feel. And I talked to this one guy who I had actually known from my days in New York City, and I explained to him what I was trying to achieve. And he sent me something that was literally like he had a vision into my brain. Like, I just clicked. Like, see, when you're working with people, in art or in life in general, you know who you just gravitate towards. And some people, like, right off the bat, oh, I'm going to be friends with this person. Like, they get me. And he got me, and he just like what he sent back was he was inside of my brain. So we started just playing with this concept a little bit more and working together. And now he works for our company. He's our creative director, and he was a huge part of this because he was the one. My brain was kind of like this scrambled jigsaw puzzle, and he was the one who helped me spread out all the pieces and kind of put it together so it could be translated. I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and I just want to congratulate you, because I would say that's exactly what transferred to me as a recipient of the products. It was definitely an experience. I had this, unveiling moment and really examining the box, and it was very different. And I don't know if I shared with you, but I'm a total potions junkie. I love to try new products. I love the experience. But this one was really unique and really special. So I just think congratulations, because your vision is transferred to me as the user. So
that means so much to me. That's the best compliment you could ever give me.
Yeah. So in the journey that you are still on, and you've really given us a glimpse into, how did this really start, and what would you say has been the biggest resistance or insecurity that you've had to push through in the process?
There's so many insecurities. I mean, you have to have really thick skin, I think, in this business. And as somebody who is trying to create something, you have a lot of insecurity. You put it out there, and you're kind of, I'm not an artist in the sense of a painting, but I understand how they feel when like an artist does a new collection and you put it out there and you're like, ooh, are people going to like this, or are they going to think it's crazy? And you kind of sit there like biting your fingernails, not really sure. And not everybody's going to like what you do. I mean, we had an overwhelming response to the formulas, but some women were like, I didn't like this for my skin. And you have to just have thick skin, and you have to understand that, you can't be everything to everybody. And I think that was a big challenge for me, is taking some of that, that negative feedback and learning just how to live with it, because it becomes so personal to you. It's almost like I keep going back to motherhood because that's such a big part of my life, but it's like somebody criticizing your child, like you don't like it.
Right. It's like a part of you walking around outside the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same feeling. So that's something that I really had to get over. And working for other brands, if I got negative feedback, I would just it wouldn't bother me because it wasn't mine. But now that this is mine, just getting some thick skin and like learning how to take suggestions and feedback in the right way has been a challenge for me. And hearing no, I mean, I always worked for big brands, and I was always hearing yes, from big retailers. And I approached a lot of retailers in the beginning that said, no, it's not right for us. It's not a brand for us. And that's hard. I mean, that's because you put so much of your energy and time and thought into something, and having somebody kind of close a door on your face, it's like, it's a lot to take. So I think that's something, as part of my journey and my evolution is just learning how to take those setbacks and think to yourself, what can I learn from this? Like, how is this a learning experience? How is this making me stronger? And looking at those setbacks in a positive light has really helped me get through it.
Did you ever feel like quitting? Like this I'm done. This isn't working. I'm not doing this.
I still do. My work day right now is, I work from 8:30 to 4:30, and then I turn everything off and I spend time with my babies, and we play, and I do dinner and baths. And then when they're asleep, I'm back on from 7 to 11:30. And that's just what my day looks like right now. And my business partner and husband and I always laugh that we moved to Jackson Hole to take a break from the corporate world and like to ski and do all this stuff. And every day my friends are calling me, let's go out. There's some fresh powder. And I'm like, oh no, I'm working. But I'm blessed, and I feel very lucky, to have the opportunity to grow and build something that I love. And it's, that's what makes it worthwhile to me. So yeah, I think we all have those feelings of quitting and, is this really what I want to do? And but you got to listen to your heart, and my heart and my brain are totally aligned that this is something that makes me very happy right now.
Yeah, I wonder though, because you felt like the hamster wheel in Ohio, or not Ohio, and that's where I am, in New York City, the pressure, the type A, and now your schedule is full, but does the work feel different? Does the life feel different? Maybe you're not skiing as often as you want, but what is different?
It feels different because I'm following a dream. This is my dream. I am doing this because I believe in it, and I believe that I can make other people happy also. So I am more motivated than I have ever been before because it's real to me. It's personal, it's authentic, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story that has inspired me. And my goal is not only to inspire others, but let's see if we can make you feel better about the way your skin looks, And when women come to me and say, I cannot believe my under eye circles are like completely gone, and I feel I'm getting compliments left and right, like that's motivating to me. Like that makes me happy that I'm doing something for other people, while I'm exploring my own dreams and goals. So it's a very, very different feeling.
Mm-hmm. And the other part, when a woman, a man or a woman, but I tend to work mostly with women, when they work for a company or they have, they're promoting or supporting someone or something else, it's rewarding. They can really love what they do, but you're building something that can create a legacy. You are hands-on, touching people, serving people, and the sky's the limit, how big this can be. And so not just the growth potential, but also the human touch potential. And then you can decide how big or how small. And it's really, I think the control part of it is, I think, for me as an entrepreneur, such a valuable part of, what I do, how I fill my time, that maybe you might be feeling in this transition as well.
Completely. And I do feel a lot of responsibility. However, as the company grows, and it's growing faster than I had anticipated, for sure. We're definitely on a very accelerated trajectory at the current moment. I feel more responsibility to what can I give back to the environment. So we actually just signed on to 1% for the planet, which is very, very near and dear to my heart. And it's an organization that partners you with a charity so you can give back 1% of revenue to support environmental causes. And I think that that's one of the things that drives me also. It's not only are people looking and feeling better in their skin, but we're able to give back to something, and every retailer that we launch gives us a bigger platform to be able to support what's important to us. So
super, super great. I love that. Yeah. And it's just so important. And the more success we have, the more able we are to help others and our world. So thank you for that reminder. As we wrap up today, Kendra, I would love to share with our listeners, in the midst of following this passion and this dream unfolding and all the energy you're putting into it and the thought and the care, not only for your customers, but for the world around you, how do you recharge? How do you stay creative now?
I spend a lot of my happiest moment is when I'm with my family, and we have a rule that on the weekends we all stay together like every day, minus a quick workout here or there, but that's very, very inspiring to me is being with my family and just enjoying my boys as they're young. Like now we're 2.5 and 4.5, and it just goes so fast. But that recharges me. I have an amazing support system. I have the best friends in the world. I have the two most amazing parents. And, just being around the people that I love and feeling the love is what gets my creative juices really flowing. And then I read everything. I mean, I'm online. I'm constantly just looking at entrepreneur stories and learning more about the environment and learning more about the forests. And that's very, very, that's stimulating to me. The more information I can take in about what other people have done, that's where I spend any free time I have. I just want to listen to podcasts like yours and read about how other people have done this, because everybody has a story, that we can learn from. So,
do you have a morning routine?
My morning routine consists of usually cooking breakfast for my children, maybe getting oatmeal smeared all over my face, the dog barking, chaos going on from every single angle. The morning is really rough in this house, I would say. But I do have an evening routine, a beauty regimen where I slather on hundreds of products and lotions and potions. And that's another place I really lose myself, and is just, working, with different formulas and things that I'm mixing up and things that I try from brands I admire. So I have an evening routine. The morning, it could go any direction.
Yeah. And life is phases, especially with children. It changes often. So you kind of make it work how and when it can work. So I am so grateful for our conversation today. Kendra, if people want to learn more about the line, if they want to learn more about you, where would you recommend they go?
Our website, alpynbeauty.com, and that's spelled ALPYN, beauty.com. There's a lot of pictures from Jackson Hole. We share a lot of the stories about our process, how we wildcraft, why it's important to us. And I wanted it to be this kind of teleportal, like right into the beauty of the environment that I'm fortunate enough to live in. So I would say our website is the best resource right now.
And if they want to buy a product, can they go to Sephora? Like I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Can they go to our local store? Is it all over the country?
Yes, it's online right now. So we're on Sephora.com. And then you can also shop us on Goop, Credo Beauty. They have stores across the country. But yeah, for Sephora, online is just the easiest.
Perfect. Well, it has been a pleasure. We'll make sure all those details are in the show notes so they can find you, find your products. Claire and I are going to post about our beauty regimen with our new Alpyn Beauty products as well. And Kendra, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so open and really inspiring other women to follow their passions and their dream.
I would say the same thing about you. Thank you for all the inspiration that you put out there into the universe, and you've inspired me. And this was such an honor to talk to you today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I just loved hearing Kendra's story. She is so fun and easy to listen to. And what I keep thinking about is that story she told about how she had that problem of beauty products weren't working as well in Jackson Hole, Wyoming as they had in other places because of the altitude, and that the solution to her problem was right in her backyard. And I just think, how often does that happen to us, that we're looking all over for a solution when really it's right in front of us?
And sometimes we're waiting for like a really big sign.
Yeah.
Like we're waiting for, the skies to open, a billboard to show up. And what I take away from that is the willingness and the importance of being open to receive those like hits to our intuition and those signs from, our request to reveal the next path for ourselves, and whether that's your higher power or just you're tapping into your own intuition. I've actually been doing this little practice where many people have like a gratitude practice where they focus on the things they're grateful for. And over the last month, since the beginning of the year, actually, I've been focusing on what ways am I receiving divine guidance? What ways are, people, places, emotions, vision, things I'm seeing in front of me, interactions with people, guiding me toward the next step on my journey. And it's fascinating when I turn my attention to the receiving, how I'm noticing things more. And it is a practice. It is a discipline to be open to seeing the guidance that we're receiving. So I encourage people to kind of think about that after they listen to this and be open to the ways that we're being nudged.
Totally. Like what's growing in the wild in your life that you've never thought to pick and harvest?
I am so excited about helping women cultivate and strategize and discover that next path, that next step. And if you're interested in exploring that with me, you can go to ellezimmerman.com and sign up for a Discovery Day. And I'd love to just have a chance to chat with you and help you see what the next step is. I'm so grateful you joined us for today's episode. I bet you're here because you know there's something more for your life. Whether you're moving into something creative or letting go in order to take that next creative step, I have something for you. My free guide to graceful transitions. You can find it at ellezimmerman.com/transitions. And remember, if she made it, you can too.